All right, so it's time for the fun part of the project. That's actually installing the tile. So if you did the prep work prior to this, it's going to make this installation a lot easier. Today we're going to be installing some mosaic floor tile. And I want to give you a bunch of tips on how to set this, the methods on how you want to do it, and some of the tools that help make this a lot easier for you. So let's get started. So the type of thinset I highly recommend for any beginner or any tile installer is Ardex X5. Main reason is because of the pot life that we're gonna have in the bucket gives us plenty of time to make all the accurate cuts. Especially when you're installing mosaics, you need a little bit more time with setting everything, cutting things, and getting things set up. So X5, really highly recommend it. We're gonna mix them up and get ready to set the tile. So it's always important to measure your water first. The ratio is between 6 and 7 quarts per bag. And I'm going to go right in the middle, around 6.5 quarts. All right, so the most important aspect for setting any mosaic tile is making sure your floor is nice and flat. So as you can see, I have a 6-foot level here, no space at all. Everything's 100% flat, and that's really what really makes this a nice, easy installation. So anytime that there's any type of deviation in that subfloor, it's gonna make this, you're gonna be able to see it immediately. And it's really hard to build up mosaics. You really can't add more thinset underneath of them. I mean, you can, but then you're gonna have problems with it coming up through the joints and making it a lot harder for you. So if you can use some self-leveler, I definitely think that's the way to go. It makes it a lot easier. So a couple other tools that we're gonna be using here. So one, well, this is my scraper. This is a linoleum knife. It doesn't seem like a tile tool, but it really helps, remove any of the thinset out of the joints. Allows you to move things around a little bit. Probably use this on, hundreds of square feet of tile. So it's the way it looks. Another one is gonna be some tile nippers. This is just gonna help cut some accurately around the toilet flange and make any cuts. This is not 100% necessary, but it's definitely helpful. And I definitely like to use it. Now, as far as trowels go, you would go with something just about as thick as the tile. So this is a 1/4 inch U-notch trowel. This is typically what most tile setters would set with. This is probably what I've used for most of my career for mosaics, is using a 1/4 by 1/4. Another thing is just a grout float. This is just to tamp it in place. And then we're gonna be using some grinders with a good tile blade. So what I like using is these Montolet CGX blades. This is just to do some of the excess cutting, and we're gonna get into it. But what I like to do is I have a grinder here with a dustless, it basically extracts dust from here. But I like to do all my cuts dry. Main reason is because if you try to run this through a wet saw, it can make this backing really weak and kind of fall off. And then when you go to set the tile in place, if it comes off the mesh, it's a real pain in the neck. It's just a lot of placing each one individually. So I like to dry cut it. I don't like to get my mosaics wet because it just creates more problems and harder. And plus, you don't want any of your tile to be wet before you set it in the thinset. It needs to be dry so that you can actually get a good bond to the back of the tile. But each type of mosaic is going to be a little bit different with how the backing is. The biggest thing about these though, in all these mosaics, is that you will need to pay attention if you can actually see the tile. So on the back of this is like a netting. You can see the actual physical tile. That's a good thing because now you can have good coverage of thinset actually bonding the tile. If you see any type of mosaic that is completely coated in the mesh and you can't even see any of the tile, I'd be cautious of that because you're just relying on the glue on the mosaic to actually bond to the thinset. And in recent years, or in the past couple of decades that I've been doing this, if you see that completely shellacked with it, a lot of times the tile will end up coming loose, especially in wet areas like shower floors. I haven't had too many issues on major outside floor areas because you're not usually getting enough water to penetrate it to be a problem, but I definitely have problems inside of a shower. If you can't see the tile and you're not getting bond to the tile, you're going to be subjected to possibly having that tile come loose at some point. So you know, before you purchase your tile, definitely pay attention to that. It's really important to be able to bond Thinset to the actual tile. Since it is a mosaic, I mean, when it comes to referencing, you know, forget about what's necessarily square. It really is going to be the visual reference points that you need to go with. I mean, these are pretty small. Now, obviously, you know, if anything's extremely out of square, you're going to be able to see that one way or the other. But I would just pay attention to the visual areas. So we're going to have a vanity here. We're going to have a toilet here. The biggest visible area you're walking in is going to be right at this tub. So if you make this tile even with the tub, making sure that everything lines up, we're basically going to be cutting these diamonds straight down the middle and starting from that angle and working our way this way. If our walls are out of square, you know, that's what it is. But if you have this uneven right against the tub, it's going to look really bad, and that's what everybody's going to be kind of focused on. So I would recommend just starting out where the tub is. That's going to be your square mark, and work your way from there. So let's go ahead and still get a center point. I think it's important to find the center so you can try to even it out on the other side. So we got basically 58 3/4, so 29 3/8 with our center. So let's just take a look at this for reference of what center might be. So we'll make the center of those diamonds right on the center, and we're just going to hand lay these out. A lot of times it's just easier just to lay them out, to take a look at, see what it's going to look like. But ultimately, I'm just trying to obviously eliminate slivers. We're going to have a tiled wainscoting on the sides. So, you know, you're going to have some room for error as far as overcoming the sides of the tile. But I always do like to set my floor tile first. I just want to try to eliminate any real small slivers, and I don't want to be having to have a small diamond in that edge. So we're going to probably want to try to make our tiles so that they basically come in the middle of our octagons, because that can overcome a better look. So we have almost like, you know, an inch of room. So if we stay right in the middle of that, so let's just go ahead and try to stay in the middle. Yeah, so that's probably going to be better off, because then I have a little bit to play around with here on here. So we're going to go right on the edge of here from our center, but really just laying this out is going to give you the best reference of it. So just, you know, that could take you a little bit of time to lay it out. All right, so again, I would rather prefer cutting all this stuff dry versus using a wet saw. The main reason is because I want to be able to set the tile immediately and not have to let it dry, and I don't want to compromise that mesh on the back. So we're going to go ahead and cut these diamonds. Now, I mean, pay attention to your actual mosaic. If you have some additional netting coming outside of your tile, then you want to reference this. But right now, the way that all of these are laid, it doesn't really matter which way you go. It's just a matter of because there isn't any extra netting on either side. So I can pretty much, when I bring my extra tile across, I can go either direction. So it really makes no difference. I'm just going to I'm going to cut my dots so that they're up against the tub, so that I have a visual reference and making sure that they look all nice. So let's go ahead and cut a bunch of these tiles with that. I'll put my mask on. All right, so now we've got all these nice and straight up against the tub. Now we can go ahead and set that first row. And once we set that first row, the rest of it you just pretty much follow that pattern. It's really, you know, just like any wall installation as well. If you get that first row level, everything works out pretty well. So this is going to be just fine. Might have to do a little bit of fine tuning when I go to set it into place, but yeah, just making sure that you have that first row straight and everything cut up against the tub, we should be in good shape. Still got people in there. Okay, that's good. Okay, so we got our first row established. I'll just pull them aside in the same order that we put them in so that we don't get confused. Okay, so you always want to take a damp sponge and wipe down your surface. And this just gets the dust off of it and makes it glide easier. So we're going to be using that 1/4 by 1/4 since we already tested it and we're getting good coverage. So first part is to use the back side of the trowel and work it into the substrate. This is going to get you better trowel lines, and the more consistent your trowel lines is, the better that you're going to get coverage on this tile. So work it into the substrate and then directional troweling. Okay, so pay attention to the excess thinset in any areas because you don't want to have to fight getting it out of the joint. All right, so we'll go ahead and set our towel into place. And before I tamp it, I'm just going to set them all into place first. Make sure that you stay flat. I'm just going to use a straight edge. Make sure that my tiles are all in a line because that will make a difference. It'll kind of grow on you in some fashions and be problematic. So if you get this first row straight, then you can just basically eye it up for the rest of the time. I'd rather have a little bit of a bigger joint up against the tub because I'm going to be caulking that joint anyways. So, you know, the tub joint, as uniform as I want it to be, having a little bit of a gap is not a big deal. But being straight is going to make the rest of this installation much easier. So there we go. So that's not too bad. Okay, so now you've got it in place. Now you can just lightly take a grout float and embed it into place. Okay, so this is where having some of these horseshoe spacers are kind of nice in case you don't have the spacing, especially on these little diamonds. They sometimes don't stay where you exactly want them to be. Use your linoleum knife, scrape out any joints, and get these the way you want them to be. Oh, I got one more diamond in the corner there too. Okay, so moving on. Basically rinse and repeat. Only it's going to be a little bit easier now that we've got all this main cuts out of the way. Okay, so if we're around the toilet flange, let's go ahead and try to set this and basically pull out all the tiles that are going to interfere, and then we'll cut them in piece by piece after we get the tiles in. So these don't have to be really super accurate since I'm going to be putting a toilet flanger on here that has plenty of room. So I'm just going to use these tile nippers. These tabby spacers, they're like little wedges. They could be a little bit more accurate with trying to push some of these diamonds to where you need them. Yeah, looks all right. All right, next row. Okay, so what we're gonna do here is put a metal transition right at our jamb here. So we're gonna cut this down to 32 inches. Okay, so this is not intended the way that Schluter is meant to be used, but I have it inside of this channel. So there's just a little bit of a bump here, but I'll be just grouting that. So it's really not that much of a lip, but it really kind of works well for this. This will go right up to my carpet when they install a carpet. But you just want to make sure that you embed this well. So that meets nicely up with my carpet. I'm not doing any type of wood transition or any exposed screw fastener type. This is just a Schluter edge right to the edge.